Hi, Gary Mitchell here. Episode 251 of my long-running but infrequent series of podcasts that I began way back in 2007, believe it or not. And the occasion of this podcast is a recap of my visit to the Honeywell User Group, HUG, that was held in June. Following the conference I went to, my last podcast covered the Siemens Digital podcast or conference, and this one covers HUG. But first, a word from my sponsor, my longtime sponsor now. Appreciate their support of me and trade press in general in this market. This podcast is brought to you with support from Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new perspective on industrial automation with Ignition, packed with innovative features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexibility and an intuitive built-in design environment. Ignition supports enterprises of any size or industry. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. And then earlier this year, they just a few months ago, they've offered a new extension. Now you can have all the power of Ignition with the convenience of the cloud. Ignition Cloud Edition makes it easy to add the power of cloud to your Ignition architectures. Extend and hybridize your enterprise operations. Leverage elastic architecture that instantly scales up and down, and securely host and deploy solutions on the world's most trusted platforms, all on a pay-as-you-go plan. I had missed a few hugs back a few years ago. I was in the influencer marketing group, if you want to say that, with Hewlett-Packard Enterprises, and their HPE Discover was at the same time as HUG, and so I went out there to do some IT work, but things happened, and actually I was working with kind of all the major IT people, but IT and manufacturing, they sometimes have a little difficulty coming together. So last year I went to HUG, and this year I went back to HUG again. Great experience. The marketing communications staff, perhaps the best that I've been in 25 years of going to these things. They really, there was a media analyst program. They brought people in. They had sessions, many one-on-one interviews, and that's the good news. The bad news for me is there was just a ton of information. So just trying to recap that for a little bit is going to be interesting. The CEO, and I guess I could try to pronounce his name, Pramesh Maheshwari, he mentioned at one of the places he'd been CEO now for 9 months at Honeywell Process Automation Solutions, I think HPS, Honeywell Process Solutions, and he's picking it all up. I mean, if he's in that position, he's extremely bright and remembers tons of stuff. But basically, he made a few points to us. Honeywell is not intent on replacing people with technology, but helping people perform better. And it's something I sympathize with. He noted people have different learning styles, and Honeywell products try to adapt to those different learning styles, some of which may come up later in this discussion. One of the main things that they talked about, digitalization, and I'll talk about that a little bit in some of their products that they have to help companies that are digitizing or digitalizing their operations. Companies are on a path to net zero carbon. There's a lot on sustainability. I'll get into that very soon. Some very interesting things on sustainability. And I should mention that this was mentioned several times here, several times at the last two conferences I went to. They made a strong point, given American politics and all that kind of stuff, that sustainability isn't a political issue with these companies. Sustainability is a cost and quality issue. It's simply good business. It is good for the environment. It's good for the communities. It's good for a lot of things, and that's why they invest and why they're doing it. And basically the third point, digitalization being one, sustainability being two, and then the third one, focus on digital workforce competency. And I had a couple of good conversations with some VP general managers and so on in stuff you might imagine, AI and that sort of thing. So I'll talk about that a little bit later too, as I skim through a number of things that were going on in our conversations. We were approached by, or given a presentation by, and I had an opportunity to talk to Evan Van Hook, who's Chief Sustainability Officer for Honeywell, the corporation. The main big part. And his presentation was interesting, and he says he looks at sustainability similar to the quality revolution, where the goal was to produce quality outputs consistently, creating a culture of quality. And so he got his position. He has a question: can we create a culture of sustainability? Well, they're working on that, and the way they're doing that has to do with lean, with a capital L, because it's a thing, not just me trying to lose another 10 pounds. But anyway, the lean approach. So the lean approach is quality, delivery, inventory, cost, and sustainability. It's a systematic approach. They've implemented it in their facilities, and with all the various aspects of lean that if you don't know, you should, and you can search my blog and many other places and find about lean. But and part of the thing is coming up with projects, Kaizen projects, or whatever. And they've been doing this for not just starting it recently, 13 years. And in 13 years, they have generated 6,500 projects, with the ideas coming basically from the what I would call the factory floor, or whatever, from the grassroots level. From the ground up. And anyway, 6,500 projects over 13 years. They've had a 92% reduction of CO2 released, 70% improvement in energy efficiency. They've restored 3,000 acres of wetland. I didn't write the numbers down here, but they've saved a ton of water, actually tons probably. And also, as another byproduct of all this, they have 4 times the industry average in safety. So you add all of this stuff up together, lean or sustainability, there are books written. What's the title of that book? Confessions of a Revolutionary Capitalist, or something like that, about a carpet mill in North Georgia. When something happened that brought to the attention of the owner of the carpet mill. This is a long time ago. I read that book way more than 10 years ago, I'm sure. And basically brought to the attention of that business owner, then leader, that carpet making, dyes, and everything was a dirty industry, and challenged his executive group to come up with better ways of making and selling and taking care of carpet, which they did, and that's a great story. So anyway, Honeywell is along on that path. Very interesting to know. So let's switch gears from sustainability to digitalization. And this one was a little puzzling to me, and I really appreciated getting the chance to talk to Tiffany Barnes, who's with the Digital Prime product/solution. This is an offering that is responding to the customer need for digital transformation, and so I really appreciated the conversation. One of the things is Digital Prime is like it's a little bit more like a platform, and it's really just been introduced, and there's only a couple of parts introduced right now, more coming as they build out the whole thing. And so I asked, what problem are you solving, and where are you going after? And she told me that Digital Prime addresses certain. It's a cloud host and digital twin of the DCS. And It's addressing things like risk of disruption, production downtime, plant safety, that sort of thing, the pressure to reduce overall life cycle cost, to do more with less, data overload. It will address data overload, which is a problem depending on many situations, and also addressing the reduced skilled workforce. Still, I've been writing about it for 15 years, but it's still a thing of a lot of retirements, taking a lot of expertise out the door to the lake for fishing or the golf links or whatever. And trying to both do training, new people coming in, and try to get companies to be able to work with a reduced workforce. So the ironic thing is a lot of the stuff that they're doing here, they had built a virtual infrastructure to help with system acceptance when they sold and installed a new DCS system or process automation system. They had a lot of digital data and everything, and the whole infrastructure was built up to help with systems acceptance. And then when the system was accepted, then it just all got deleted. It got trashed because why? Why would anybody need it? And one day customers said, "Wait, you've got all this information, all this digital data, and it kind of looks like a digital twin, and we could probably use that." And so that's where things went, and that is going along with this new solution that they have. And as she pointed out to me, providing a secure cloud-based connectivity and virtual engineering platform, it's a collaborative environment for managing and testing additions, patches, and upgrades and other system changes. And as somebody who once in his life was in charge of engineering change system, I appreciate any work anybody is doing these days to help with engineering changes. So it enables functional reviews and impact analysis. It supports remote FAT. It provides a training tool, and it also documents digital changes. So pretty cool. The next question that I had when I was listening to the presentations at the keynotes and so on, and even before, many of us are familiar with the work of the Open Process Group, and especially the Open Process Automation Forum, and the things they're trying to do to decouple software and hardware in the control area, so that the main thing they're trying to do is upgrades to brownfield plants. When my control platform, my DCS, wears out its welcome, and maybe the hardware might still be okay, but the software is way generations behind, and it would cost just a ton of money to try to rip out that control system, put in a whole new control system, maybe with new I/O, and it would just be cost prohibitive. And so they're looking for a way to decouple the software and the hardware so you can upgrade the software without having to replace all the hardware, and also to decouple the I/O so that I can replace all the main control stuff but leave all the I/O out there. And if I've done my I/O right, not only is it decoupled, but it's configurable in the field, and saves me from having to go out and replace lots of I/O. So lots of stuff going on, which is all possible to do. It's all digital and virtual. And so anyway, I got a chance. And Honeywell, I should preface, Honeywell has a product solution called HIVE, HIVE, all caps, and which means it stands for something, but I won't go into that. But I'm interested in Honeywell HIVE, and they gave me an opportunity to sit down with Joe Bastone, who is the leader, spokesperson for that product area. And so I asked, basically I was going to ask those exact questions, but I asked about HIVE, so I don't really understand the details and some of the technologies behind it, and could he kind of dive in? And what he did was he gave me a bit of a history of HIVE. And this is totally, shall I use the term, decoupled from the whole thinking I had about that open process stuff. So basically, they had a customer a few years ago, several years ago now, and who had that problem. They desperately needed to upgrade the software of their control systems, but faced all the constraints of monetary constraints and time and all the problem that is to upgrade all that. So Honeywell went to work, and they discovered that they could do things to the hardware without ripping it out, but add the latest software to it. Now, Honeywell had already, and this is some years ago, I still remember the press conference in New York City we went to when they unveiled their new I/O, their configurable digital I/O, and the cabinets and all the stuff and the networking and the stuff that went with it that made the I/O really cool. So they've already worked on the I/O part. So now they decided, oh, well, this is like we could run like a virtual machine in that controller and then add the latest software. They can upgrade with much less pain and anguish and cost and so on. And so once they started to work on that problem, they discovered, well, it's a virtual system and we can just do virtual systems. Well, that's kind of like decoupling software and hardware. So they basically were able to move to virtualized compute, effectively decouples hardware and software, and then the I/O already virtualized and decoupled, and so Honeywell HIVE solves that upgrade problem. So as Joe walked me through it, and of course these people at highly placed marketing positions are quite persuasive, and I used to be able to get software and try it at home, and I haven't been able to do that for more than 15 years probably because it's gotten way too big. But anyway, it sounds good. I mean, they demonstrated some. I saw some demonstrations, and it's coming along, and that solves another problem that they a customer problem that they would have had. I want to talk about sustainability for a little bit, and there's several different things to talk about. One, and I just put solar panels on my house. That's not my house, it's over this way, but anyway, if you're watching on YouTube. But one of the problems with intermittent renewables like solar and wind are it only generates electricity while the sun is shining or the wind is blowing or whatever, and so it's not constant, and there's a real need for battery technology, not just for my new electric car, but just in general for transmission or for your house or for whatever. And so Honeywell has had a battery solution. It was housed in something the size of a actually it was a shipping container, one of those big things you see at the back of semi-trucks, and so on. And they have, of course, software for managing solar battery installations. They have come up with a new scalable forkliftable virtual power plant, they call it, and an energy control center that's in Experion, their software. Interestingly enough, I just bought a car called an Ioniq, and their new battery thing is also called Ioniq, spelled differently. But anyway, Honeywell is out with a battery solution at a commercial scale of use. Further, another conversation, that conversation was surrounding Gadre batteries, and I talked to Naved Riza, and the general topic was supposed to be carbon capture, and I always enjoy talking to him and seeing what's next. So now we're going down another whole different path, and this is eco-fuels or biofuels, including and hydrogen. So you talked about, and you can find it on the web, the ExxonMobil Baytown deployment of one of Honeywell's carbon capture technologies. It's a CO2 fractionalization and hydrogen purification system, and this captures CO2 emissions and so on, runs it through a system and purifies and comes out with hydrogen for fuel. And they expected ExxonMobil to capture about 7 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. And he said the equivalent of emission of 1.5 million automobiles. But anyway, that's one interesting aspect of what they're doing. Another interesting aspect of what they're doing, and And I have family members at United Airlines, and United Airlines is really big right now on biofuel. So they're the Honeywell eco-fining projects are working on like diesel aircraft fuel from biofuels and ethanol to jet, methanol to jet, and also different hydrogens and so on, and low carbon processing. A lot of stuff going on there. Another aside on that are some more sensors that Honeywell has for detecting methane leaks. Either like flying a drone along a pipeline or maybe a whole bunch of little sensors in a plant and triangulating and figuring out where methane leaks are to help tap those out and so on. And then finally, I'll talk about the workforce slightly. Right at the end, I talked to Manas Duda and about mobility and so on, and talking about AR platforms and not necessarily the Apple Vision Pro, but nothing to do with that. But for example, performing maintenance on a pump can involve an average of 3.5 round trips for the technician. With augmented reality platforms, they can save a lot of time, many hours, I wrote, by providing the right documentation and the right tools up front. Technician can look at this and say, oh, I'm going to need, this wrench, this meter, this whatever the tool might be, and then have the documentation right there in front of them. Annie mentioned AR, VR. Augmented reality, virtual reality are excellent for training, especially as individualized feedback based on AI feedback. I hope their AI is better than Apple's in messaging when they don't realize what I want to type next and try to correct me, or I put in a certain person in my message and they switch on me. But anyway, hopefully so. But AI feedback coming back into the training system helps make it an individualized experience for the person being trained, which helps a lot. It'll sense. I'm studying 2 languages on Duolingo right now, and it'll kick back at me and say, well, here's the mistakes you missed, but I'll notice as I move along that they're providing me with that same question or sentence in another way to try to reinforce what I'm trying to learn, and that's AI feedback. So, what's Honeywell Process been doing? They've been doing a lot. This is a huge survey. I would have never believed so many different things, and so on. So it was a good experience. It took me a long time to digest everything and think about it and write it up. You'll find the write up on my blog at themanufacturingconnection.com, and of course this podcast is downloadable wherever you can download podcasts, and you can see the video of me in Wimble in person on YouTube. So thanks for listening. And once again, I would like to thank my sponsor, my longtime sponsor, Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new perspective on industrial automation with Ignition, packed with innovative features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, a mobile-first flexibility, and an intuitive built-in design environment. Ignition supports enterprises of any size or industry. Think out of the box. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. And now you can get Ignition in the cloud. Cloud Edition makes it easy to add the power of the cloud to your Ignition architectures, extend and hybridize your enterprise operations, leverage elastic architecture that instantly scales, and securely host and deploy solutions on the world's most trusted cloud platforms on a pay-as-you-go plan, thanks to Inductive Automation. And thanks to you for listening. Hey, take it easy, be kind to someone today and tomorrow, and have a good day.